Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? A gracious good morning to you, good people. It's your girl KB. You know what I do, and you know why I do it. It is Tuesday morning. It's August 12th, and it is 2:38 in the a.m. I have a ton of paperwork to do today, so I'm gonna be short, sweet, and dare I say, sassy. I'm just messing with y'all. It's early in the morning. I'm tired, but I needed to get this out. There's a lot I need to get out, but decorum and the FCC does not allow certain things that I want to say. Yeah, I said it. I meant that part. Anywho, yesterday and the day before, excuse me, I posted a video of a young sister talking about how and why she gave up Christianity. And she highlighted, I want to say, fundamentalist beliefs as the primary reason. And one word she seemed to be stuck on, and I get it, but I want to talk about my approach to it. The word she seemed to be stuck on was obedience. We got this holiness or hell mentality. Then we got the I want to say the fear of, if I don't obey, this will happen. Life has consequences, folks. There are a lot of if and then scenarios in life. If I do this, then this will happen. We can look at it as science. More specific, physics. For every action, there's what? Okay, science. Then we have phrases like, trust your gut. Okay, I'm going to get into the science of that as well. This sister, I'm inclined to agree with her, and I told her I identify as a Christian. Yes, I do. And I'm one of those OGs that loves the hymns. Some of this new music sounds like I'm at a club, and I don't like it. But to each his own. We're all entitled to our own opinions. For me, I talk about the dangers of just a feel-good gospel, because there's some parts of the gospel that are brutal. There are books of the gospel that many of us don't know about because we stick to the canonized books. There was a whole process of selecting what books were going to go into the Protestant Bible. I have to catch myself every so often. I fall into speech patterns that are comfortable. And sometimes I lose things in the translation because I fall into speech pattern. So if you hear me correct myself mid-sentence, that's what's going on. I hear myself and it's like, no, I'm not having a stroke. Family Guy, Popeye episode. But I am correcting my speech. How about that? And I made a shameless reference to the Family Guy Popeye episode because it cracks me up. Anywho, let me get back to my point. So, all that being said, me posting these videos, got a couple of shout outs back. Yo, KB, I've heard you talk about obedience. Yes, you did. I'm not going to run from the word obedience. Some people took the words obey out of the marriage vows. For, I want to say, reasons that are totally, I want to say, pride-centered. Now, I personally, in the proper context, love the word obey. You know, I obeyed my parents because I loved my parents. I trusted my parents. Yeah, and as I developed a sense of learning how to do critical thinking, now think about your brain. Here we go with some science. It's proven that the brain grows from the back to the front. The back is what's called the base brain, and that's basic functioning. You know, as I learn, you know, this develops more. Now, the part that develops last or takes longer to mature is the critical thinking part in the front of the brain. Base brain is survival, front is critical thinking in order to survive. Now, we've gotten past the basic skills of fight and flight. Well, I think I took a whole lot of fight and brought it up front for me. But anywho, that's how the brain develops. I obey because it gives me guidelines and principles on how I function in this world. Yeah. We hear phrases like, but I'm a good person when things go down. Or so-and-so was a good person. I don't know this other person. You know, we hear that a lot with news stories when somebody snaps, right? What is the standard of measure for good? What is your standard of measure for being a good person? Because I'm sure, you know, there are serial killers and, you know, just nasty historic figures who felt they were doing the right thing and could justify it. And a lot of insanity is justified with scripture. And see, that's the part I'm addressing. What are you obeying? What is your standard of measure? Now, we talk about the goodness of God, but we're so far away from that standard of measure that, you know, I get upset sometimes when somebody says they're a Christian. I say, where's the love? Where's the compassion? Where's the empathy? You know, where's caring for your fellow man? Because there are some characteristics that we should have in order to identify as a Christian. Now, as far as obedience goes, obedience is respect and reverence for their standard of measure. And again, we've done some really foul things by twisting that standard of measure to meet our selfish needs. So then now when I go to trust your gut, let's talk about that and the science of that statement. When an embryo is developing, the same tissues that are the brain are the same tissues that develop the gut and vice versa, because I believe the gut is what develops first. Or, you know, it is a scientific process. I say the gut develops first because you have to have nutrients in order to develop healthy cells. Okay, so those are the same tissues. So like what happens is, like you say you're watching TV and you get this beautiful food picture. Okay, now the brain is triggered. Then all of a sudden you get hungry based on that picture. You're not really thinking about it. It's a subliminal message. That's because both those functions are activated. And it is the same with the things that we call sin. Now, people want to say there's a definitive list. You know, I told you I had this grandma that she had a file cabinet of everything that would send you to hell. That was her understanding. That worked for her during her time. Okay? People want to talk about fear and the fear mongering. For me, I told you I'm not afraid of no man. You know, if we're going to fight, I'm either going to win or lose. You know, if we're going to argue, I'm either going to win or lose. No, it's not anything I've never heard before. I'm not going to fall apart. You know, so that being said, trust your gut. And fear-mongering, I want to say again that the fear is reverence and respect and awe of who God is, just like I had reverence and respect and awe of my parents when I didn't understand something. I had to trust in their word. I know what I wanted to happen, but I'm going to get political, and it's hard not to these days, but think about the person that believes that they're entitled to everything that they see and want. Think about the internal conversation that's going on when they realize that they can't. Think about how you move grimy in order to get, because you heard that you can't. Think about the damage that is done because you're moving grimy, because you heard no. Now, everybody has some thoughts and feelings about that. But they're also under the opinion or the misconception that they can have everything that they want. And they've even gone so far as to refer to certain individual as daddy. You don't look like or act like any parent of mine. And as I told you yesterday in a video, when I was talking about how names mean something, and I identify my name as attached to my mother, I'm blank blank's baby girl. So if I don't mean anything to you, you're going to recognize my mama. And I mean it just like I said that. Because you know who my mother is, you know my mother's character, and you know what my mother's capable of doing. In the same way mother didn't play about me, it's the same way God don't play about me. And again, it's respect, reverence, and awe of who God is, supreme being, Jah, you know, Allah, Ra. You better recognize. And I love your statutes. I love your ways. I love your principles. And I obey. And yes, folks, I'm deconstructing some things, first and foremost for myself. Because I realize a lot of the things that we were taught go beyond the teacher. Just as I was talking about what books are canonized. There are books of the Bible that some people haven't read. And pick up a Catholic Bible. Those books are canonized in Catholicism. And know what message in the historical context was being conveyed. Why were these books canonized? And you will understand, you know, how man manipulates things to serve a purpose. Not only do you have to know scripture, you should know the historical context. There are a lot of study guides. Pick one. Start from there.